But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. Let me tell you about my great God. Hey guys, Pastor Tim here. Hope you guys are doing great. Hope you're ready to get your day started off in God's Word. We are in 2 Kings chapter 20. We are at the end of Hezekiah's life. And like I said, he was a good king. But this chapter is kind of interesting. One, the first half of the chapter, it deals with Hezekiah. He's very sick. All right, and it's important to understand that chronologically, this portion of the chapter, this portion of Hezekiah's life that we're dealing with actually takes place during the middle of the siege of the kingdom of Assyria. All right, Hezekiah, he's dealing with all these problems now. He's sick. He has the Assyrian Empire is threatening to overtake Jerusalem. And of course, this is not the time that he wants to die. So he pleads, even after Isaiah tells him, hey, put your house in order, pick you a man to rule over after you. Quite literally, because he did not, as we find out, have any male descendants yet in his life. So he would actually have to pick someone to be the next king. Of course, he didn't want this to happen. So he prays and he begs and he asks God to give him just more time. And God grants him that. All right, gives him 15 more years. Now, there is some debate amongst people about whether or not this was something that Hezekiah shouldn't have prayed for, whether or not he was wrong in praying and asking for this. And you could have good arguments on either side, because just him living longer, extending his life, it led to his eventual mistake he makes at the end of this chapter that we'll talk about. But then you could also make some other arguments on the other side about all the good things he did while with those extra years of life. He was able to raise up Israel, make it a fortified city, improve the water system, obviously solves the whole Assyrian siege dilemma and so forth. And obviously he then had sons that could continue his line on the throne, which was more than just his line, but also the line of David. So we're not going to focus so much on the fact that whether or not it was good or not that he did pray and ask for these 15 more years, but God did grant that to him. But then we see at the end of this chapter, towards the end of his life, we see Hezekiah start to swell up with a bit of pride. All right, so the Babylonians come in, and they're coming in because they just want to show condolences or just see how Hezekiah is doing. They heard he was sick, and he goes around and he starts showing them all the treasures that Jerusalem has and that he has in his own house. And this turns out to be a very foolish thing. And Isaiah confronts him about that, saying, hey, what did you show these Babylonian officials? What did you show these guys as they came in? And he says, there was nothing I didn't show them. These are the possible enemies of Judah, and they do become the enemies of Judah not too far in the future. And Hezekiah says that's foolish. Why would you come in and let them see all your weapons, all your horses, all your treasures that you have, and now they could take that information and use it to their advantage in the future? And the Bible alludes to the fact that God allowed this to happen, this whole situation where the Babylonian officials come in to test Hezekiah to see where his heart was, whether or not he would glorify God or glorify himself. And we see him simply glorify himself. He says, my treasures, my property, it's all about me. Look at the treasures that I have. Forgetting that it was God that gave him the victories over the Assyrian Empire. Forgetting that it was God that gave him these extra years to live as well. It's all about, hey, look what I've accumulated. And because of his pride, he made the mistake of showing off to the wrong people. And as we see in the future, they eventually use this to their advantage to take over Judah, much like Assyria took over Israel, the northern kingdom. And we're told about Hezekiah's son who rules after him. And no, he is not as good as his father. He did not do that was right in the eyes of the Lord. Well, anyway, guys, that's all that we have for today's chapter, 2 Kings chapter 20. Once again, we see after a great victory, somebody that gets swelled up with pride and they forget who it was that gave them that victory in the first place, and it cost Hezekiah in the end. He made a mistake, and Isaiah tells him so. Take what you guys learned today. Tell somebody about your great God. Be faithful in your journals, writing those things down, and just tell somebody what you got out of the word today. Stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.